Hello, Happy New Year and welcome back to the channel, and this is the definitive breakdown of the Gameplay Showcase 2. This is split into 3 different parts which I've released as 3 separate videos, but this is the full, unedited, long version for you. If you wanted to watch it all together in one go, I have linked all of the videos into this one long video for you. So the first section will be covering the exploration and the flight elements of this Gameplay Showcase. The second section is the Dark Arts Arena and all of the combat, and then the third section is for the full breakdown of the Room of Requirements. If you've watched any parts of these videos, then I will leave a link to all single part videos in the description down below, so you can just watch the ones that you've missed. As always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and don't forget to give this video a like, because it really does help out the channel loads. But without any further delay, let's get into this video. So this gameplay showcase starts off exactly where the last one left off, and that's just outside of Hogwarts Castle. And as the camera spins around, we get a stunning look at the surrounding area and lakes of Hogwarts School. Now initially, let's pay attention to the HUD that we can see on the screen. We'll pay a lot of attention to the map as this area exploration part of the video takes place, and look at some of the symbols that we can see on the map. But first of all, let's have a look at the spells we currently have equipped. It looks like we have the Summoning Charm Accio equipped at the bottom. We also have this flame symbol, which I presume is going to be Incendio. We have the feather, which I would imagine indicates Wingardium Leviosa. And then we have this symbol on the left. I think potentially this could be Expelliarmus, but I'm not entirely sure at this moment in time. You see our health bar at the bottom, and also some health potions next to it. We have 10 currently equipped, so we can carry at least 10 of these items to heal us during the game. Above that is our ancient magic meter, which is currently empty. To the left hand side we have some potions which you can use to power ourselves up, and then obviously on the far left we have the map. There is a flue flame symbol just behind our character, which is obviously where we have spawned in at this time. The first thing I noticed of this gameplay footage is how absolutely stunning this area looks. The grass textures, the trees and the lighting are just absolutely stunning. Even the draw distance of the game, look in the distance, you can see these buildings, you can see the light reflecting off of the mountains. Everything just looks perfect. We're also in some new robes we haven't seen before. These are some sort of brown casual robes. They don't seem to have any Hogwarts or wizarding crests on them. They just seem to be robes that we can wear as we explore the outer world. It's worth noting there seems to be some sort of tree symbol on the back of this. It could just be texture effect, but it looks to be a tree growing up the character's spine. Our character approaches the end of this cliff and then magics his broom to him. The start of the broom is really cool. It gives me wizard staff vibes. At the end of the shaft of the broom you can see this giant bulbous ball, which looks a bit like some sort of magic staff, and I like the rawness of the sticks at the end of the broom, which shows it is dated compared to the broom we see in the Harry Potter movies. Our character then dives off the cliff down towards this hut that we can see. You can hear the wind rushing past us and it just sounds amazing. The sound design of this game really is impressive. The flight mechanics of this game encourage you to fly low to the floor. If you fly higher in the air, it actually uses up your boost level and you will eventually return down to the bottom. You can see now the HUD has changed at the bottom right. The yellow bar indicates our broom's boost level, and this is how much we can go up in the air or go fast. We also have a health bar. Now I wonder if this is because enemies are able to attack us still while we're in the air, or if we are actually able to just plow into certain objects which will lower our health bar as we move, so we have to be careful where we are flying. As we head down this path, there are a few more symbols at the bottom. There appears to be a cave symbol here, so I think this is probably some sort of dungeon or exploration area that we can go into, potentially underground. And there is this question mark symbol on a piece of paper. I think this is going to be some of the lore pieces that we found throughout from some of the previous videos. As our character continues to fly down the path, there is 2 more symbols that appear. One appears to be a magnifying glass, which to me would symbolize there is something that we can find or some sort of secret in this location. And the other one is a flue flame symbol. You can see this one is grayed out because we haven't yet found this location. It is worth noting the flue flame symbol does not change colour. I do not think we actually activate it. I don't know if this is because we are on the broom or because we are too far away to activate it, but it does not seem to be activated as we go past. So we're yet to find out if broom flight does allow us to activate flue flames. As you can see, the magnifying glass symbol is to the right now. It does appear on our actual screen, not just on the minimap, but there is also a circular symbol on the floor which indicates the area we are supposed to search in for the secret. There's also several chests that appear. We can actually see one in the water just to the left hand side of the screen here. These are obviously going to hold items and objects that we are collecting throughout the game. Some of these appear to be in these buildings, so I think we can actually explore some of the buildings in these little tiny hamlets. Our character continues up a path and then comes to this location. There's a new symbol on the screen that looks a bit like a leaf. As we approach, we see what I believe is going to be some of the Merlin puzzles. You can see the swirled symbol on the floor that we got from the original trailers that indicate a Merlin puzzle. Around this area there seems to be lots of these little humanoid figures that have these bulbous heads and sort of wooden bodies. I wonder if these are things to look out for if we are following the Merlin quests. If we find these, they may lead us to Merlin locations. On the minimap, you can also see some red dots which indicate enemies on the screen. To the right hand side, you can see what appear to be some sort of wolves over to the right. I'll get into the wolves a bit later on when we come to some of the charms that we can put on our clothing, but wolves do seem to be quite a common enemy because we can put charms to protect us against wolves. They have confirmed during the showcase that we can buy different brooms. These are purely cosmetic looks about the brooms, but we can buy them to allow us to customize the way our broom looks to match our own aesthetic. But we can also buy upgrades that allow us to boost for longer and do different things on the brooms, so it'd be interesting to see what these upgrades are. We have to go to Hogsmeade to purchase these upgrades. To the right hand side along this path there is another Merlin puzzle with the leaf symbol. However, I cannot see anything obvious to suggest that there is a swirl on the floor, so maybe there is different types of puzzles linking to Merlin's path. Now we fly past 2 signposts here. Unfortunately, I cannot make out any of the writing on the first signpost, but when we get to the second one, there is actually a moment where you can see some of the writing on it. To the right hand side, you can see a signpost for Hogwarts and Lower Hogsmeade. This bottom sign here looks like it says Danger Trolls, and the top one looks like it is the name of location, however it is quite difficult to pick out. There also appears to be other signs that are stuck on there recently. There is a symbol at the bottom which also appears like it says something about trolls. Character then continues along the countryside and comes up towards this graveyard, and to the right hand side there is this other symbol. It's quite difficult to make out exactly what it is. It looks like it could be some sort of cave symbol again. However, as we approach, there is a dueling feat. So I think this is a dueling challenge location. You can see 2 challenges that we have to do in this dueling feat. First one is to use a mandrake against an enemy. The second one is to keep an enemy airborne for 10 seconds. I love these little challenges. They just give an extra spark to the combat gameplay. One thing I do love in this flying scene is that we see lots of the NPCs going about their day-to-day work. You can see these people walking down the path here. There's also someone tending this field. This really does have a lived-in feel about the game. As our character lands in this hamlet, there is a crowd of people gathered around this musical performer. He is using what appears to be a normal instrument, but playing it magically. He is not actually using it in any way that a muggle would, and it is just floating in front of him. I think it's really interesting to see these different types of performers and these different things that wizards do in their spare time. There's a floating hat in front of him that allows us to tip the player. One thing that I find absolutely insane is the fact that we appear to tip in 10 galleons, which even in Harry's time is a lot of money. As you can see, as our character looks at his cottage on the minimap, there is a scroll location, and you can see it glowing in front of the building. This will give us some information about this little hut. I really want to know how it got here and how it came to have this tree completely entwined into it. I cannot wait to see how much lore they are going to build in this game. I think it's going to be incredible. We get another signpost at the top of the screen, and this one we can see a couple of these signs a bit more clearly. To the top it says Lower Hogsmeade, again off to the right. To the left is a signpost to the graveyard, and that is a graveyard we just flew past that had the dueling challenge in it. We can see 3 names of towns. You can see to the left hand side there is a Brock Borough, to the right is Arranshire, and to the left there is a town called Iron something. As you can see on the minimap, there is lots of symbols around this area. However, the store to the right hand side does not appear to have a symbol on the minimap, so we may have to go looking for these particular stores as we go around, as they do not appear everywhere on the map. As we approach this bar area, you can see there are 2 interactable items. There is a chair that appears like we can sit down in it. There's also a butterbeer, which we do take a nice swig of. There's also a scroll symbol just to the right hand side here, which will give us some information about this tavern. By this bridge, there is a flue flame location that we can unlock, which will allow us fast travel to here. As we walk closer, it does activate, however, it doesn't tell us the location name. I think potentially the devs have removed it, so we don't know the name of this specific location. Also, to the left-hand side, there is another Merlin puzzle with a swirly location on the floor. Now, this tower ahead of us is a really interesting location, and I actually think we have seen it highlighted previously before. On the overture of the unwritten video, when it highlights the map on the floor, there appears to be a glowing tower slightly further away from the Hogwarts location. And this looks like it could actually be in the perfect location for it. So it'd be interesting to see why this tower is so prominent in that map and why it seems to be quite prominent in this location here. The dev team seem to be playing a lot of emphasis on it as we walk around this location, so I think actually it will have quite a prominent role in the game. As we get to the top of this bridge, we reveal what I lovingly call the Newt case, and this is where we keep our secret magical beasts. And we reveal our Onyx hippogriff, and this is the hippogriff we get through our pre-order bonus. Instantly we can see that mountain travel is not just airborne, and we can actually ride the hippogriff through the ground locations of Hogwarts Legacy. We gain speed and take to the air on the hippogriff, and it just looks incredible. I cannot wait to do this and just explore the locations. As we take to the air, on the left hand side you can see some rocks that are glowing. These are presumably going to be a collectible that we can collect. There's going to be many of them we use for crafting items. Now, as we take flight, also look at the minimap, and there is 2 enemies that we can see, and we actually do lock onto one of them, and it gives us a bit of information. We can see that these spiders that we've seen throughout the trailers are not breaking law because they are not acromantula. They just appear to be giant spiders of some sort, because the name of them are actually given, and this spider is called a thornback scurrier. And I believe if it was an acromantula, it would be called a thornback acromantula. So I think these are just giant spiders and not acromantula in the game. And it's nice to see that they are not breaking the law that we do know. As our hippogriff glides through this area, you can see the wind rippling through its wings, and it just looks great. As soon as it starts to glide, it just feels so majestic, such a wonderful creature, and I can't wait to explore Hogwarts and the surrounding locations on it. Now, as we're flying over this location, you can see a rail track beneath us. This doesn't appear to hold trains, as there appears to be a cart on it, which would suggest there's going to be some sort of mining location nearby. As you can see behind us, there are some enemies. These are going to be goblins. As we can see further down this field, a few more appear, and we get a better look at them here. Now, as we fly over, we can actually see the symbol appear beneath the hippogriff. This is because they have noticed us. We know there is stealth gameplay in the game, so there is also a warning that appears for us below the hippogriff that shows the question mark symbol when an enemy is inquisitive towards our location. This changed to an exclamation mark when they fully have noticed us. You can see the bar builds through a grey, then into a yellow as it gets more and more dire for our situation as they are noticing us. This gives us a clear symbol to get out of the way and hide again. So this also comes up with a dueling challenge to the right, and that is to slow a loyalist assassin. So we get that these goblins are actually loyalists. I think that means they are loyal to Griphook and his cause. It also appears like this location is going to be a higher level location. So we can go to any location irrelevant of our level, but we will actually have to struggle to beat the creatures in certain higher level locations. As we get to a higher level location, you can see the aesthetic completely changes and it gets foggy and all the trees appear to be dead or broken. Now there's a new symbol on the map, and it appears to be some sort of maze, and you can see that there is a doorway or archway ahead of us that we actually would be able to interact with, which looks to be this maze location. Now it'll be interesting to see if we can activate some sort of magic and it works as some sort of portal that allows us to go to some hidden location. I'm really intrigued as to what this location is going to be and what we are going to do inside it. We have another confirmed creature, and that is a Dug Bog. A Dug Bog is a marsh-dwelling magical creature found in Europe and North and South America. It resembles a piece of dead wood while stationary and has finned paws and sharp teeth that it uses to glide through the marshland. We get a new location below us, and that is this animal footprint. I believe it's going to be some sort of high-level beast encounter. I wonder if this is potentially a beast that we may be able to catch and take to the vivarium. We then fly up this hill in towards this windmill, and it just, again, looks absolutely glorious. Everything that they have shown us so far is just stunning and just makes me want to be able to get into this game as soon as possible. We get a wonderful piece of dev magic now, and it is fantastic just to be able to see what different areas look like at different times of our year at Hogwarts. Now, as we can see here, it changes to snow, and everything does look slightly different, but you can tell it's the same location. It just looks incredible. The snow on the ground is very reminiscent of what we get in the UK with a light dusting. It just gives such a great, authentic feel to the location, and it really does feel like you are around the locks in Scotland. Again, we can see more Merlin locations as our character flies around this location. There's also a flue flame that has already been activated. Now, a really interesting location on this map is as we approach this broken down fortress here, which instantly looks amazing to search. We also get a new symbol that appears on the map, and that is the ancient magic symbol. Now, what this means, I do not know. Is this a location where we will be able to power up our ancient magic, or is this a location where we'll have to go to follow the ancient magic storyline? I do not know, but it's a location that I definitely want to be able to follow. As you can see in the distance, there appears to be a cave that goes deep into this mountain, which is where the ancient magic symbol is. As we round this corner, there is some of these floating balloons with the star symbols on them. What they are for, we still do not know. However, I think they are going to be some sort of broom race or some sort of flying mount race. But we do not see any symbols that could indicate exactly what they are going to be. As we come out of this canyon, we come back to a darker location, which appears to be a higher area location. There's another beast encounter, another one of these dueling challenges as we approach this graveyard. The symbols do seem to be around graveyards, so potentially it is just indicating a graveyard location, which will obviously have quite a few magical beings. As we fly through these trees, there is another symbol that appears. There is a skull symbol here. This appears to be some sort of dark wizard's camp, as you can see the fireplace below us. We don't really get a good look at any of the enemies, but I think this is going to be the locations where the dark wizards congregate and spend their time out in the wilds. As we are flying through this location, the developers are talking about the day and night cycle. They've confirmed that the day and night cycle will affect how the game looks. Obviously, when it's nighttime, it will be darker, but there will also be less NPCs around. There will also be a lot more artificial lighting by fires and candles. They have also mentioned that some things will only be able to be accessed at certain times of the day, which will be really interesting to see if there are certain secrets that people will not necessarily find straight away because they have not turned up at the right location at the right time. This view is just absolutely fantastic, and we can see Hogwarts in the distance, and the school just looks so impressive just as a main focal point in this surrounding area. You'll be able to see it from most of the locations, and it's just incredible to see as a point of interest to head towards. It's unbelievable. The developers really have just done an absolutely incredible job with this game so far. Finally, the last bit of this gameplay footage that we see of the flying gameplay, we can see another Merlin puzzle on the floor, which appears to be very close to Hogwarts itself. These really do seem to be a lot more numerous than I expected them to be. They are dotted around everywhere, so it'd be really interesting to see how well we can interact with these and what they actually do when we interact with them. We also get a look at a quest marker of this character right at the end of this pier. We can see that there is a marker above his head, and this will give us a quest to be able to do. So this clip starts with us in the Forbidden Forest, and we're at a very familiar tree. This is a tree that we've seen in some of the promotional material for Hogwarts Legacy already, and we can see some of the signs slightly more clearly. Some of these say danger, keep away. There is also a warning for senators, and there is a danger sign from the Ministry of Magic themselves. As the camera pans round, we get a wonderful shot of the Forbidden Forest, and the environmental effects of the fog and the lighting just make this area look perfect. It looks terrifying and spooky. As our character rounds this corner, we see there is some leaping toadstool caps, which are collectibles for crafting, and our character can collect them by pressing the square button here. If we take a look just ahead of us up this path, to the right hand side there is a web symbol on the minimap. Now this is going to be some sort of spider's nest where the giant spiders hang out, and there's actually 4 enemies that you can see on the minimap already. So this area does seem to be quite overwhelmed with spiders, and I would imagine there's going to be some sort of hole or dungeon area where the spiders will come out of if you approach, so there'll probably be more than 4 to face. To the left hand side you can actually see the Dark Arts Arena symbol. This is the location we actually head to in this trailer. We then bring out our nuke case and withdraw the Festral mount from it. This looks absolutely incredible. Honestly, the creatures in this game just give me so much joy, and I cannot wait to ride them and tame them and look after them. We then head down this path and head past the spider's nest. Ahead of us there is a flue flame, and this is actually lit. And because it's lit, instead of it appearing in the middle of the screen, to the bottom left hand corner near the map, it actually tells us the location of this flue flame. And this is in the North Hogwarts region. We then follow the path up to the left, and as we get to this fork in the road, if you look to the right hand side, there is something that we can search on the floor behind this tree. I don't know if this is a chest or something else, but there is something we can search there, and hopefully this will give us either some form of clothing or item, or potentially some other form of crafting material. To the right hand side you can see on the minimap there is a river. We don't head that way, we head up to the left and we head past this ancient magic symbol. Now we saw this early on in my other breakdown and I speculated what it was, but I have a bit more of an idea from this clip here, because as we walk past it our character says this audio line.
A castle must have been quite stately in its time.
Now I've speculated that Merlin is quite heavily linked to the ancient magic, and also I believe that pensives are going to be a big part of the ancient magic storyline itself, as well as we see a few of them throughout some of the trailers. Now I believe as we go to different locations we will be able to access with our ancient magic different memories. Now our character says this castle must have been stately back in the day, and I think with our ancient magic, if we go to that location, we may well be able to see how stately that castle was, because we will see it in a memory. Now whose memory it is I do not know, but potentially it could be linked to some of the founders. As we turn away from the castle there are some more leaping toadstool caps that we can collect on the floor here. And then we see the path lead up to the right, which goes up the mountain, but we take the lit path round to the left that leads towards the Dark Arts Arena. I love the animation as we get off of the mount, because we draw the suitcase straight away and absorb the Festral into it before we've even got off of it. Our character then approaches the Dark Arts Arena and it says the following. Fight waves of enemy in this battle arena with the unforgivable curses Avada Kedavra, Imperio and Crucio, as well as the blasting curse Confringo. In addition to their unique and devastating effects, unforgivable curses break through all shield charms. Now, it's interesting to see that they give us a set of curses that we can use, and then by the looks of things they allow us to pick 4 more, as that seems to be the only curses that we use in this battle arena. Just want to say, as our character is waiting to go through into the battle arena, you get a really nice view of the Dark Arts cloak, and it really does look spectacular. We then enter the Dark Arts Arena, and as we do, this figure closes its cloak around the entrance. Now, one of the most exciting screens we get in this trailer is the next screen we see as we go through into this. This is where Andrew is setting up his spells, and it says, "Sorry, no peeking." However, I think we can actually decipher what quite a lot of these spells are, and actually, from looking at the shape of the pixelization, I think I may have even put them in the right locations. So just looking at the layout of the screen, to the left hand side it looks so you have your actually equipped spells, and you can see the 3 unforgivable curses, as well as a Confringo spell on the spell cross that we can see on the left hand side already. Down the middle of the screen is all of the spells that we can actually use within the game. Then to the right hand side there appears to be a little section at the top, which I would imagine would tell you the name of the spell and give you a brief description of it, as well as a short video clip of our character using this spell underneath it. So first of all, I would like to go through the spells that we know. So I'm going to sort these into the 3 categories that we have. We have the control spells, which are in yellow at the top of this screen. We have the purple spells, which are the force spells, and then we have the red damage spells. There are obviously a few more colours beneath this. So first of all, I think we know 2 of the yellow control spells, and the first one is going to be Arresto Momentum. Now what this spell does is it seems to be a slow effect on the enemies, and it seems to hold them in their tracks wherever they are, as you can see here. Arresto Momentum seems to last for approximately 3 to 5 seconds, and it has a 15-second cooldown. The next control spell that we know is Wingardium Leviosa, and this is the symbol for it here. Wingardium Leviosa brings the enemy into the air and they just seem to flail around for a second. Again, this seems to be some sort of crowd control effect to stop the enemy from attacking you for a short period of time. Wingardium Leviosa has an 8-second cooldown. Now into the purple spells, we have the first one, and that is Accio, and this brings an enemy towards us. If they are far away, it brings us to the same location as it does if they are closer to us, and this brings them into a more prominent area for us to be able to attack them, but also has some crowd control effects on them. Accio has a 7-second cooldown. The next spell that we know is Descendo, and this is a spell that slams the enemy into the floor as seen here. Once we've used Descendo, there is a 10-second cooldown on this spell. And finally, we have the other purple spell that we know, and that is Depulso. We don't actually use it in this trailer, however, a lot of the Dark Arts characters do seem to use it. Because of this, I do not know how long the cooldown is. Moving on to the red spells, and we actually know 3 of these, and these are the damage spells. So the first one we see a lot in this trailer is the Confringo spell, and this is the exploding spell. Once we use Confringo, there is a 20-second cooldown. The next spell we see used a few times in this trailer is actually Defindo. This is the cutting spell. Once we've used Defindo, there is a 15-second cooldown. And finally, the last damage spell we know, and that is Incendio, as seen here. Again, I do not know the cooldown for this spell. We do also see this red symbol. I do not know exactly what this spell is, but I believe it could be Expelliarmus. I do not know if this has been confirmed anywhere, but I believe this is what most people's speculation is. On the next row, there is a row of light blue spells, and I believe that we know one of these because we have seen it in other parts of the breakdown, and that is Lumos. This is obviously the wand lighting spell. Again, I do not know what the cooldown is for this. I'm then going to move down to the dark green spells, and that is these spells down here. These are obviously the unforgivable curses, and we see them lots in this trailer. The first one is Imperio. This takes an enemy on our side and allows them to fight for us. Now, this lasts for at least 20 seconds before we attack them, but I think it could actually last longer. However, when we do attack the enemies, they do snap out of their bewitchment. The second unforgivable curse is Crucio, and this is a really interesting spell. The effects of it look fantastic, as seen here, and what it actually does is it hits the enemy with an initial burst of damage, but then it does several further ticks of damage. Once you use Crucio, there is a 20-second cooldown. And finally, the last unforgivable curse is Advada Kedavra, and this is obviously the killing curse. This is an instant kill attack and will kill any enemy that you use it on. So it's obviously good to pick wisely who you attack. Once you've used Advada Kedavra, there appears to be a 55-second cooldown, which is obviously a lot higher than the rest of the spells for obvious reasons. Also, to increase the power of the Advada Kedavra spell, it doesn't only instant kill one enemy, it also has an effect on other enemies around you and causes them to experience fear and stops them from attacking you for a short period of time. Now, there's a few other colour spells in the middle of this that I don't know exactly what they are. There is these 3 light green spells, and these appear to be the ones that we see in the Room of Requirements, but we don't know exactly what these do. Just from looking at the pictures and seeing what happens on the screen around them, this is potentially some sort of conjuring spell, and this is where we get all of the items that we conjure into the location in the Room of Requirements. This here, just because of the symbol, it looks like it is duplicating something, could well be the Gemino spell, but I'm just speculating here. And again, with this one, because of the glass, it looks like it is being broken, I would suggest that potentially this is a Reparo. There are 3 spells at the bottom of this screen that I do not know what they are, but potentially they are linked to our ancient magic. So there you go, this is our list of all the spells that we know. I know a couple of them are speculation, but I think we have nailed most of these on the head. And this is what I believe they're going to look like when you put them on this specific spell screen. I think just by looking at the shape of the symbols, I have matched them up to where they will be located in the actual game. Now, the next section of the game we're going to do slightly differently than normal. I have personally gone through it frame by frame to find all the secrets, but I have brought these down into a nice version for you to watch rather than watch me go through each fight scene individually, because there's a lot of stuff that repeats itself and I just wanted to get to the most important points. Now, while we are talking about the magic, let's have a look how our basic attack combo works. Now, looking at our basic attacks, we have a 4 spell combo. Now, I don't know if this is just at this point of the game or if potentially later on we can upgrade it to a 5 or 6 or 7 spell combo, but at this point in the game our character has a 4 spell combo, and the way that works is we have 3 spells which do 34 damage each, and then a 4th more powerful spell which does 174 damage, as seen here. Now, more of the combat, let's talk about how ancient magic works in this game. Now, as you can see, as we hit this enemy with the combo attack, there is these blue gems that fall off of him. Now, we can collect these gems and you can see it absorbing into our character here. Now, as we do so, it builds up the meter at the bottom next to the ancient magic symbol. Once this meter is full, we can then unleash our ancient magic in a very powerful attack. In this trailer, we actually see 3 different variants of the ancient magic spells. The first one we see here up against this enemy, you can see the L1R1 prompt, which is the ancient magic prompt above his head, and you can also see the ancient magic symbol glowing as we use the power. This spell seems to blast the enemy backwards, and as the enemy hits the wall behind him, he disintegrates into several different pieces. The second ancient magic spell that we use is actually a very strange one, as it involves transfiguration. And as you can see, the L1R1 prompt again above this enemy, but this time as we hit them with this spell, the enemy turns into a chicken. Now, I believe the difference between normal transfiguration and this transfiguration is this is going to be permanent. And the final ancient magic spell we see is again very different. This one is more of a thrust motion with our wand, and as we do so, a bolt of magic pierces the enemy. As you can see, it seems to appear out the back of him, similar to a gunshot, and then the enemy seems to fill with magic before exploding. Now, these spells look almost as powerful as Avada Kedavra themselves, but they are just unique and different and are fantastic to watch, and I really can't wait to see how many variants of ancient magic powers there are. We've already seen the lightning one in the previous trailer, so it'll be interesting to see if there are many more variants. Another key feature of the combat in this game is the blocking and also dodging mechanics. There's 2 different warnings that our character gets, and they're both indicated with a prompt around the character's head. You can see here, before this attack comes in, our character has an orange prompt around his head. The orange prompt means that we can use our deflective spell Protego to protect ourselves from this spell. When we use Protego, we have this shell of magic around us and we can deflect the spell. It's worth noting as well that it prompts us to hold triangle during Protego to stun enemies with the Stupefy counterattack. So this is going to be how Stupefy is implemented in the game, and if we do it, it does stun enemies out of the game for a very short period of time. There's also another prompt around our head, and this time this one is red. This is an unblockable spell. Only certain enemies appear to be able to do these, but maybe all enemies can do them. We just haven't seen it in this trailer. This particular character is a ranger, so I'm guessing his attacks are more powerful. So this is unblockable by our character, and because of that, we have to utilize the dodge roll, which you can see here. This clip here against the mountain troll really emphasizes the different versions. As you can see, we cannot block the first 2 attacks from the troll, so we roll out the way of them, but the last one is actually blockable, so we block this with Protego. Following straight away after this is another gameplay mechanic, and this is using the Pugno spell. This spell fires items from around the map at the enemies, and as you can see here, we bring this boulder towards us before firing it into the troll. And the last main combat mechanic that is important to go through is the cursing mechanic. When we use the Crucio spell on this loyalist warrior here, you can see that this green cross appears around him. This means that this enemy is cursed. We then continue to fight and actually end up cursing another character throughout this fight scene. What the curse means is that if we attack a different enemy, the damage that we inflict to that enemy is also shared among all of the cursed enemies. If we use Avada Kedavra, we can kill multiple enemies at once. It's a really cool gameplay mechanic and would be really good to implement during fights with multiple enemies, just to try and keep control of the crowds around you. So now we get onto the section where we're going to talk about our potions and our utilities that we can use throughout the battles. First of all, we'll have a look at the health potions. These are indicated by this green bottle to the bottom right. They are Wiggenweld potions. As you can see, our character gets hit by a spell during this moment, and our health bar drops to about 1/3 remaining. We then take a potion. There is no actual animation for this, but we can see the potion counter goes down from 10 to 9, and as we do this, our health bar fills nearly full, suggesting these potions are able to fill about 2/3 of our health bar. But potions aren't the only way to gain health in this game mode, and if you actually look at this clip from earlier, when we absorb the ancient magic from this enemy, you can see that our health bar rises very slightly as well as the ancient magic meter, so we can actually absorb some health from enemies. Another potion that we can take is the strengthening solution, and this has the really nice effect of making our skin turn to stone. This will mitigate damage from enemies, so if you're fighting stronger enemies, it is worth potentially taking one of these before the fight begins. We then get a look at our utilities wheel, and there is a few things that we can actually use during the fights. We have the 3 plants that we know of so far, and that is the Chinese chomping cabbage seen here to the left. There is actually a brief description of this at the bottom of the screen. It says a formidable chomping cabbage that when released attacks nearby enemies. Chomping cabbage seeds can be purchased at Dogweed and Deathcap. They must be grown in medium or large pots. So this actually gives us a name of a shop that we're going to see in Hogsmeade, and that is at Dogweed and Deathcap. Above the Chinese chomping cabbage is actually the venomous tentacula, and this works in a turret sort of way, as you see here. And below that is the mandrake, and we've seen this in one of the previous trailers. To the top of our wheel, we have the strengthening solution that we've just seen, and then to the right hand side, we have this focus potion. And this works to reduce the cooldowns of our attacks. It appears that it actually halves the cooldown at time, because it appears that Advada Kedavra would last now only about 25 to 30 seconds. So the main objective in this battle arena is obviously to defeat the waves of enemies, but we also have some mini objectives just to spice up the gameplay, and these are dueling feats that we can see to the right hand side of the screen. And we have many different ones throughout this trailer. They seem to get harder as the rounds progress. So these are the challenges that we actually have. First one is to hit a ranger with Stupefy. This is obviously holding the triangle button. We then also have to use a mandrake against an enemy. In this one we have 2 feats to complete, and this is to hit a troll with its own boulder, and also to defeat an enemy with a venomous tentacula. Again, in this screen we have 2 more to do, and that is to use Protego successfully 10 times, and also to perform a dueling combo up to 30 attacks. In this one we have 3 spells, and that is to cast Stupefy on an enemy 4 times, to defeat an enemy with a Chinese chomping cabbage, and to perform a dueling combo again up to 30. If we complete a challenge, we actually get to see what that looks like as well, because we complete the 30 combo in this footage, and you can see that once it is done, the writing goes green, and also there is a tick in the circle next to it. So now that we have covered all the combat elements, let's take a look at the enemies that we are facing. We actually have 3 different factions of enemies. The 3 factions we have are the Ashwinders, which are the wizards that we fight, the Loyalists, which are the goblins that we fight, and then the Trolls, which are obviously the trolls that we fight. The Ashwinders actually have 6 different variants among them. The first is an Ashwinder Scout, as seen here. This appears to be the most basic version, and they level up from here. The second is an Ashwinder Soldier. Third is an Ashwinder Assassin. These seem to stay further back from us before they come in for a closer attack. We also have an Ashwinder Executioner. These seem to be slightly more powerful than the rest of them. We have an Ashwinder Duelist, which actually seems to be one of the enemies with the top hats on, so it'll be interesting to see if we do fight Rookwood if he has the same fighting style as a duelist. And then finally we have the Ashwinder Ranger. These seem to do quite powerful attacks, but they are from a distance at all times. Looking at the Loyalist factions, we have a Loyalist Warrior, which seems to be their most basic version. We then have a Loyalist Commander, a Loyalist Assassin, a Loyalist Sentinel, and then finally a Loyalist Ranger. Again, these would obviously fire from a distance using crossbows. And then looking at the trolls, we have a standard troll that we see here, a mountain troll, and then we also have a slightly more powerful armored troll here. In this trailer alone, there is 13 different enemy types. That is insane, and that is only a couple of the factions that we're going to be going up against. So I cannot imagine how many different enemies there are going to be in this game. Honestly, everything they show me just astounds me. Now, this combat sequence is just absolutely glorious. There are a couple of moments in it where we actually hear a few of the enemies speaking to us, and I have not captured all of them, but I've captured a few of my favourite enemy interactions that we actually have. So the first one is after we use the Imperio Curse on an enemy. They say the following line. The second one is at the end of the first wave of enemies after we beat a load of wizards, and our character says this.
I did it. In an Ashwinder, no less.
Now the third clip is actually really interesting to me because it hints at the goblins' motives in this game and also at the goblin rebellion that we know is taking place. So this happens after we finish off a wizard enemy and you hear one of the goblins say this. And finally, this is also really interesting because it indicates that some of the enemies know about ancient magic, but they are also quite shocked by it, and also they see it as quite a dark spell, because after we turn one of the enemies into the chicken using our ancient magic, this is what they say. I really like it when games add these really nice details, like the enemies reacting to our spells, because it makes the world feel so much more believable and also so much more lived in. So this section of the showcase starts off with our character entering into the room of requirements, and we get a nice look around it, and there is a few little features I would just like to point out to you. So the first thing that I noticed as soon as our character walks into the room is actually we highlight a few of the items that we can edit or potentially change into different items with our conjuration magic. Now the first thing I noticed is actually the area around the vivarium in front of us is actually highlighted as soon as we walk in, which would suggest that we can actually modify this location as well. They did say that we could edit the architecture, so this means that the area around the vivarium is classed as the architecture and can potentially be edited. I will point out a few more of these highlighted things as we move through this trailer. Now we have the main vivarium that we have seen in the middle of the room, and this is the grassland area that we will see as the trailer goes on. But we have two more vivariums to the top left and to the top right of the screen. Now the top left looks to me like a swamp-like area, but it could also be some sort of area similar to the Forbidden Forest. If you look at the trees and the roots that you see around it, it does give me some sort of vibe of the Forbidden Forest. However, I think it's more likely to be a mixture of both, maybe a marshy area but with a forest area as well, which means we will be looking after creatures from those biomes inside it. I also wanted to point out the windows that you can see to either side of the doorway. They appear to be in the design of what looks to be a cobweb, which points to the fact that we may even be able to catch the giant spiders that we see around the map and even breed them. Now this one to the right hand side is a little bit different, as lots of people are speculating that it could be water or potentially underwater creatures that we will raise here. And I think that'd be really interesting to see if we can do that, and I can understand why, because the light emitting from this room does look very similar to water, and that the bowl itself does seem very similar to a sort of fish bowl design. However, if you look around the entrance to the vivarium itself, similar to the one on the left, it hints at what potentially this location is going to be. And if you look around it, there appears to be lots of stone, and to me it looks like it could be within the interior of a cave. So potentially this is going to be when we are going into the mining locations or into caves or dungeons, and this is going to be the creatures that reside in those sorts of locations. And this would be probably a slightly darker set of creatures, maybe creatures that like the cold and the dark areas, things like the Inferi or maybe even boggarts or something like that. As we look around the room, we can see a couple of the stations that are interactable. You have the plant pot locations in front of us. You also have the loom, which we will get to later on, and then we have this device to the right hand side of our character. We do not know exactly what this is at the moment, but I think this is the potions stand. Also to the right hand side of this, there is a 4-minute and 24-second countdown for something that we are making to the right hand side. This has a question mark on it, so it does not say exactly what this is going to be. We then get our first look at the conjurations and the customization that we can actually do in this location, and it is unbelievable the amount that we can customize. As we look upwards, we can see that our character can edit the whole ceiling of the room of requirement. There appear to be 4 possible selections. We only see 2 of them, which is the scientific main ceiling and also the botanical main ceiling. But there appears to be 2 more to the right hand side. These do give me vibes of different houses. I don't know how exactly they will interact with the houses, but the scientific also reminds me of Ravenclaw, and then the botanical reminds me of Hufflepuff. So I'm wondering if one of them will feel a bit like a dungeon and the other one will feel a bit like the Gryffindor common room. It would just make sense if they make it have the aesthetics of some of the Hogwarts houses. It is worth it. There is also possible changes to colour of the ceilings. If you can see to the top right here, it says to change colour. However, we do not see them do this in the trailer. Just for note as well, we see a little gameplay mechanic of when we are looking through our character goes into this sort of translucent mode that we can see to the bottom left here. So as our character moves forward to show some more conjurations of the mats, we can actually take a look at the floor design, and it is quite interesting to look at. We can see that the room of requirements itself is orientated to the compass, and on this design in the middle there is actually a few little triangles that stick out from the blue section, which point to the north, south, east and west directions of the compass. I wonder if this is intentional, that the room is purposely linked to the compass, or if this was just one of the first rooms they designed and built out from there. There's also what appears to be flames coming from around this blue thing in the middle. Obviously I do not know if there's any reason for this, but it's just an interesting design, and there's actually quite a few flames throughout the room as we go through the rest of the trailer. This could be indicating the demise of the room of requirements in the end of the Harry Potter series. So we now get a first look at the main conjuration screen, and there are a few things that we can actually see that we can build. So we have 12 different sections within the conjuration at this point in the game. Whether there is more or not, I do not know. But we have 12 that we can potentially select at this time. We only see a few of them highlighted, but I can speculate as to what the rest of them are. So the first one we see highlighted is a potions section. This item is used to brew potions. I think this is going to be the item in the corner that we saw earlier, as it appears to have the potion mechanics as part of it. To the right of this we then have a plant symbol. I think it's going to be similar to the plant pots that we see either side of our character at the moment. It's going to be where we grow our plants and ingredients. So to the right hand side of the plants we have this spanner symbol. I think this symbolises the things that we can use to customize our character. So these are going to be the items like the loom, and also for the identification table that we use to identify certain power-ups and traits for our clothing. We then have a symbol of a stag. I think these are going to be conjurations based around interacting with animals and looking after the animals that we see in the vivariums. We then have a whole section dedicated to rugs, which we can see our character use in this section. We also have another section later on that's dedicated to chairs and sofas. So if we look to the right hand side of these two symbols, starting off with the rug one, to the right hand side of that there is this bookshelf and a chair. Potentially this is going to be locations that we can actually study or we can use to help us with our studies. We then have what looks like a golden stitch on top of a statue. Potentially this could actually be linked to rewards that we unlock. If we do certain challenges, it may unlock certain rewards, so these could be potentially trophies. The reason why I think these could be trophies is because if we look below it there is actually a busk, and this looks more similar to what we see of the Niffler to the rear by the door as our character walks in. So I think potentially this is going to be more like those things, and the snitch above it is potentially going to be more like trophies that we can earn. And potentially one of the rooms that lead off of this would be a trophy room that we could put the trophies that we earn throughout the game. We then have a picture symbol. This is obviously going to be the artwork and anything that's hanging on the walls that we see around the room of requirements. Then next to the chair on the bottom row we have this table, and this table is obviously just going to symbolise a table and maybe other items that we can potentially interact with, but we might also have items that we can put on top of the tables as well. Obviously to the right hand side is the busk, which I believe is going to be like the Nifflers, as I said earlier. And then we have a whole section dedicated to the holidays. So it looks as though we're going to be able to unlock certain Halloween items and also potentially Christmas items as well. So now we've talked about potentially what we can conjure, let's look at how the conjuration works. Now we collect moonstone throughout the game. We've seen these rocks around the game, which I believe are going to be moonstone, and then we have to collect this, which will be able to power our conjuration magic. From what we can see in this, the conjuration doesn't actually cost too much per item. It looks as though you only need 2 moonstone per item at this current time. I don't know if some of the bigger items will cost more. However, there is a conjuration budget. This is obviously stopping you from completely overwhelming the room requirements with different things. And as you can see, there's actually quite a lot of leeway as to what we can conjure. I think this is because we have several rooms that come off of this room. So even though this room does appear very full, we actually have several rooms that are going to come off of this room, and the room of requirements itself is going to extend. And we also have 3 vivariums that we are going to be able to fill as well. So although there is a budget and we can only do a certain amount of conjurations, it looks as though they are allowing us to do quite a lot, because this room itself does not feel empty in the slightest. So when we are conjuring, we have what we can conjure to the bottom of the screen, and we can move right and left using the D-pad. We also have a section at the bottom which allows us to do different things to those items as well. We can undo the changes that we've made. We can also rotate the object with L1 and R1, and there's also changing sizes. It'd be interesting to see if he actually uses the spell Engorgio to do this. L2 disables snapping, so I believe potentially certain items will be able to snap together. So maybe if you have a table, you could potentially snap a chair to the location so that it actually looks as though they go together. And then there's also the square button which changes the colour, and there appears to be quite a few different colours that we can select. We get a better look at the colours when we adjust this chair here. At this point in the game, we have access to 9 colours. I do not know if we are going to be able to unlock more, but at this time we have access to 9 colours. And those colours are white, black, blue, this green colour, which is quite similar to my channel colours, so I'm quite happy about that. We then have a pink, a purple colour, and also red, white, and yellow. When we select a certain item, it gives us a brief description of what the item is to the right hand side. As you can see with the chair here, it says a botanically inspired chair with a floral flared design. I love the fact that we can actually make this chair incredibly small, and it doesn't have to be functional in the slightest. It can just be there for decoration. As we approach the stairs, we can also see there is another countdown here for 3 minutes and 12 seconds for this device here. So we don't know exactly what it's doing. There appears to be mud and different twigs on top of it, so potentially it's making some sort of manure to help make your plants grow quicker, but I'm not entirely sure exactly what this is going to be at the time. We then get a quick glimpse down this corridor into one of the extended rooms. Potentially this could be, as I suggested, some sort of trophy room where we can hang up trophies. There appears to be something on the wall in front of us which looks like it could be a creature horn, but I'm not entirely sure if that is the case. But it would be nice to have somewhere that our trophies can be displayed to show exactly what we've done. We then can see how we highlight certain things on the wall and allows us to edit them as we go. We then delete these shelves off of the wall and remove them. We then see that we get Moonstone back. We get 4 Moonstone back for this shelf, so this would suggest that potentially this item is going to be 4 Moonstone to buy rather than 2 Moonstone. So there's going to be different prices for different things that we use. We then see these cat plates, which gives a very Umbridge vibes, and we can see our character just adjusting the size and moving them around, just to show exactly how much we can cover these walls in what we want them to and fill them with our own aesthetic. Honestly, the conjuration magic and the customization in this just completely blew my mind. I was not expecting this section to be so interesting, and the way they've done it just feels like a completely different game within another game. We then turn back into the room, and there is not actually another corridor on the opposite side of us. I do not know if we have to do something to unlock the corridors. There is this figure of a woman with her hood up. She gives the Morgana statue vibes, but she is very much different. She doesn't have the staff, and she appears to be holding something to her chest, but I cannot see exactly what it is from this location. Potentially we have to look out for these similar statues, and then we can do quests around them, and then once we do that, we will unlock different areas of the room of requirements. There's also potential that we might have to use some sort of potion. If you look above the pillars here, there appears to be some sort of potion bottle with what looks like flames coming out of it. And if you actually look at the staircase that we just went up, there is also the same symbol above this staircase. I do not know if this is linked in any way or if it is just a design choice, but I just thought it was worth pointing out that they are in very interesting locations, parts of the room of requirements that are potentially expandable. We then interact with the planting table, and it gives us a brief description of it. This is a botanical potting table, perfect for growing 3 plants requiring small pots. So it suggests that some of the other plants will require bigger pots. I would imagine this is going to be for the things like the Chinese chomping cabbages, and the bigger pot, which I believe is this one over in the corner here, is potentially going to be for the bigger plants like the venomous tentacula. We again have 4 different selections for this, wondering again if these are linked to the houses, but we only get to see 2 of them once again. That is the botanical and the scientific potting table. We then also get to see our character customizing the color of this table. Now the next section of this breakdown is some really interesting information that we got about how the loom system works and how we can upgrade our gear. So when we get to a certain point in the game, they told us this wasn't straight away, but we are able to access the loom, as you can see here. We use the loom to allow us to upgrade our uniform and allow us to attach perks and also add different defensive or offensive stats to each piece of clothing that we own. When we open the loom, it comes up with this information in the middle. Gear features one primary offensive or defensive stat by default. Magical materials can be used with the loom to add and upgrade a secondary stat, or apply traits to your gear. Multiple small upgrades can yield a meaningful boost in combat power. New beasts can be rescued at beast dens, and this is a symbol that I mentioned in the first part of this breakdown in the exploration section, where we saw this beast den symbol, and I recommended it was a beast that we could potentially catch, or unlocked in quests. New trait recipes can be collected from bandit camps. And there's a picture of this tent symbol here. Now I suggested that potentially the skull symbol was going to be the camps, but it looks like they have their own symbol here. So this is really interesting. We have to gather up different magical items, which allows us to either add a defensive or offensive stat, or allows us to give us a trait. And as we go through this, it shows exactly how this works. So we appear to have potentially 4 different levels of clothing here. We can see that we are currently wearing these 2 to the right hand side. Their backgrounds look as though they could be blue, but it is quite difficult to tell because they are blurred out because we are currently wearing them. On the bottom there is also the glasses. They appear to have a green symbol around them. This is different to any of the other symbols that we have at the top. So where do we highlight the blue symbols, as we can see here? They are described as superb beneath the name of what the item of clothing is. When we are over the purple ones, they are described as extraordinary, and then when we are over this gold one, it is described as legendary. So these appear to be 4 different levels of clothing that we can have. I would imagine green is going to be the most basic, blue is then slightly more powerful, purple more powerful than that, and then finally the legendary gold is going to be the most powerful one, and I have some information to back that up when we actually look at them. So if you look at the blue one, you can see that we can apply 1 trait to this, and we can apply a trait that is at level 1. When we go on to the purple one, we can apply a trait to this, and this is when it is a trait at level 2, and then we can apply a trait to this, and that is when it is a trait level 3. Now it looks as though we can upgrade each item of clothing 3 times. As you can see this bar here, just halfway up this box, there is 3 slots where it allows us to fill an upgrade. I believe when we apply an upgrade, one of those slots will glow with some sort of magic, and that shows that we have applied an upgrade to the item of clothing. And then as we go on, we can upgrade it 2 more times. We can access the upgrade menu by pressing the square button, or we can access the traits by pressing the triangle button, as we see here. So I believe the upgrades will upgrade our basic stats, so our defensive or our offensive stats of the clothing. So the more we upgrade them, the more damage we will do, or the more damage we will be able to take. And then the traits seem to allow us to have specific advantages against specific types of enemies. However, potentially as we unlock more traits, there will be different things, not just a damage decreases against different enemies. They may add different traits. In similar games, they offer certain traits that potentially would be able to allow us to have a faster cooldown on spells, or potentially gain more experience, or potentially we could build our ancient magic bar quicker. But the traits we get to see at the moment are only damage decrease traits. We have discovered 25 traits at this point, but we can only see 7 of them at this moment in time, and we only know exactly what 6 of them do. So we have the Protego Shielding level 1. This decreases damages taken from Dark Wizards. We have the Amphibior Protection, which decreases the damage taken from Dugbogs. These are the creatures that we saw in the swampy area. We have Goblin Silver Resistance, and this decreases the damage that we take from goblins. We have the Necromantic Protection level 1, and this decreases the damage taken from Inferiors. We have Anti-Venom, which decreases damage taken from spiders. Again, as I mentioned, we confirmed they were spiders in the first part of this breakdown. Again, they do not say that we are up against Acromantula, so I believe that this is still sticking to the canon that we know. Finally, we have a Cushioning 1, and this decreases damage taken from trolls. Each of the symbols do give us some sort of idea as to what we are going to be protected against. You can see that there is a wizard in this one, the outline of a Dugbog, and then outlines of the creatures that are being protected from as they go down. Finally have this lupus protection. I think this is going to be the protection against the wolves that we saw in the initial trailer, as lupus is the Latin word for wolf. Now I would imagine that the different traits we unlock will actually be relevant to different creatures that we have to collect parts from. However, all of these seem to be puff skein fur that we have to collect to be able to unlock these traits. Also worth noting, the level 1 traits seem to only require 1 puff skein fur. The trailer then goes on to show us the identification table, and this is how we identify different gear and see what traits we can learn from it. So as we find gear in loot boxes or from completing missions, we can bring it here and learn different traits and different possibilities that we can apply to our combat throughout the game. We then see the upgrade section, and it opens up into a page like this. You can see that by doing this upgrade here, we can upgrade the Snowy Owl Scarf to add 4 defense to our character. So this is just a basic defense. This is not a defense against specific creatures. This is just our overall defense level against damage to us. You can see here there is Mooncalf fur that we need to collect to be able to do this, and it requires 2 to upgrade it here. And then, as I said earlier, you can see that once we have upgraded it, this slot is now filled yellow, which means we have 2 more possible upgrades that we can do on this specific piece of clothing. Once we have upgraded this spell, you can see that we need some more Mooncalf fur for the next upgrade, but we also need a Fwooper feather. This confirms another animal in the game that we'll potentially be able to look after in the Vivarium. A Fwooper is a magical bird, and listening to its high-pitched twittering song could drive listeners insane. So each bird, when sold, was sold with a silencing charm placed on it. The silencing charm had to be reinforced monthly, and a license was required to own one of these birds. Again, another really interesting creature to see if we have to look after, and it'd be really interesting to see if we have to regularly cast the silencing charm on it. We then add the anti-venom trait to this piece of clothing, which allows us to take even more damage from spiders. So it's a really cool way of seeing it. If you know you're going to a location which is going to be full of spiders, or full of goblins, or full of inferi, you can make specific pieces of clothing to allow you to go through the mission a lot easier. So we get another confirmation of a different animal that is in the game as we go to upgrade this legendary piece of clothing. We can see that we need to collect Jobberknoll feathers. A Jobberknoll was a bird that was mainly found in Europe and North America. The bird itself never made any noise until the moment before it died, and it would release a long scream which consisted of every sound it ever heard backwards. So a really interesting creature, and just a really random one to introduce into this game. Once we do this, you can actually see the next level that we need to be able to collect to upgrade it further. We need some more Jobberknoll feathers, but we also need Niffler fur and toad warts, confirming again that we have a toad we are going to be able to tame and potentially look after in one of the vivariums, potentially even in the swamp one that we see to the top left. Our character then turns, and after talking about the creatures that we may look after in this game, heads towards the vivarium where we will look after them. It's worth noting that to the left hand side, as we walk past the hopping pot, we can see there is actually a Maxima potion ready for us to collect in there. We don't know what this potion does. Potentially it grants us a power boost. By the sound of the Maxima name, I think that's likely. We then enter into the vivarium, and instantly the lighting effects and the area just looks absolutely gorgeous. We see this Graphorn here, and there's a couple of symbols we see to the top of the screen. So we can see that it is a Graphorn. It gives us a creature's name, and it is also male with the male symbol to the side of its name. We can also see this symbol here with a heart and the animal print. This is potentially going to be how happy the creature is, or if it needs grooming or something along those sort of lines. There's also a food symbol as well, which means the creature needs to be fed. We then walk towards this Mooncalf. This is also male, and we can see that our spell diamond down the bottom has changed to allow us to look after the creatures. So we have this spell on the right, which appears to be giving them these food pellets. We have the spell on the bottom, which appears to brush them. And then we have this spell on the left, which appears to put them into our newt case, so we can take them out of the vivarium. So potentially just means that all of these creatures are able to come out of the vivarium with us, whether that means we can release them into the wild, or whether that means that we are just able to take them out and potentially use them in battle or use them for a mission. I do not know. But we can potentially take most of these creatures out with us. We then head over to this Niffler, who is also a male. You can see the two symbols at the top, and as we brush this Niffler, you can see that the heart symbol, which is his happiness, goes green because he has had some attention given to him and he has been looked after. Also, as we feed this Mooncalf, you can see that his food symbol also goes green for the same reason. We then walk over to this Kneasel, who again is also male, who needs feeding and looking after. We then get a nice look at the customization that we can do within the vivariums as well. Every single part of this looks customizable, and it's just incredible the amount of detail they've gone into. This feels honestly like another game inside of the main game of Hogwarts Legacy. It's just unbelievable. I know people who would pay just to have this experience, not just the rest of the game as well. So we can see a couple of the items that we can pick in here. There appears to be different architecture that we can have. All of these appear to be ruined, and to the right hand side it gives us a description of what they are again. This one is a ruined archway. As we move it there, just look at the lighting effects as the light moves through this gap between the building and the trees. So some more of the customization. We can customize this bench. We see all three of the variants of this bench here. So it starts off as this initial stone bench, which is described as a solid stone bench, which is a natural addition to any location. We can then change it into this ornate bench, which is described as a resplendent bench giving any area a majestic feel. And we can also change it to this wooden bench, which is described as a rustic bench to enhance a homespun design. Again, we have the ability to rotate the objects, to disable the snapping, and also to change its size. Our character then opens up the conjuration menu, and we can see that within the vivariums there is only 4 sections that we can conjure. The first section is where we can conjure things for the beasts that we have in here. We only get to see one other confirmed section, and that is the 3rd section here, which are building pieces. I can only speculate as to what the other 2 are. I think potentially the far right one could be allow us to lay different sorts of path and terrain, and maybe the other one in the middle is going to be specific items that we might be able to interact with. Maybe things where we could potentially grow crops that allow us to help feed the animals or something similar to that. But that is just purely speculation just from the picture. As we highlight the beast items, it tells us what it does, and these are items for managing beasts, including feeders, toys, and breeding pens. So we actually do highlight the breeding pens straight away, and the breeding pen can be used to breed 2 beasts and produce offspring. So we know in the Harry Potter canon there is actual interspecies breeding with the blast-ended scroots. So it'd be interesting to see if we get a male and female of different species, if we are able to breed them into something new, or if it is just a case that we can breed 2 mooncalves together to allow us to get a baby one and look after them, and potentially increase the output of the beast materials. It costs 15 moonstone to produce a breeding pen. We then see this beast feeder. It is a large beast trough that keeps your beasts fed. This allows us to not have to go around to each beast individually and feed them as we go, and allows us again to increase our production. This costs 8 moonstone. And then finally we have this toy box. Now this is described as a toolbox budget, so potentially we will be able to get an even better toolbox as the time goes on. But this is full of toys used for playing with beasts, which would potentially allow them to make themselves happy without us interacting with them again. This costs 4 moonstone. This particular toolbox contains lots of different boars that the creatures will be able to play with. There is also a training dummy from the dark arts. As you can see, the mooncalf does love this boar. So what they show us next is that we are able to customize not only the area, but we can also customize our beasts and give them names, and we actually interact with this Graphorn here. And as we do, we can see we get some more information about this creature. Graphorns are large mountain-dwelling beasts that have a tough hide and 2 sharp horns. The tentacle-like appendages on the Graphorn's face are used for capturing food, tending to their young. Graphorns are known for their aggressive nature, however a witch or wizard has been known to befriend one in rare circumstances. We have a few sections at the bottom which are really intriguing. The first one is the L1 button, which allows us to summon this creature. So potentially if we summon this creature, it puts this creature into the bag for us, and then we can summon it into battle. That would be really interesting to see how many creatures we can take into battle and what they actually do when we summon them. The L3 button returns this creature to the wild. Potentially we are not always keeping the beasts here, we are just returning them to health before sending them back to the wild. And the R3 button is what we actually do next, and that is to rename the beast. So we can give the beast a nickname. As you can see, this is Bruce the Graphorn. Once we've done that, as we highlight him, it doesn't say Graphorn anymore, it says Bruce. Just for noting, as we've done this, to the left hand side you can see some moonstones that we can interact with later on in this trailer to unlock more moonstone to allow us to buy some. So it is nice to know that there is actually some in the vivarium to keep us topped up. So that finally the last few shots is just some customization, so I will go through every individual item that we actually see as we customize it. So the first item we customize is this heather bush. We can change it into a gorse bush, a fern bush, or a shrub. and we can again see as we do that we can change the size of the bush here. We then interact with this large tree. We also see this sapling that we can change as well. This one is one of my favourites. I love the aesthetic of this. This is just described as a dead tree, but you can also potentially get a twisted tree, which is what we are changing it into here. And then finally we interact with this standing stone. We can see there is also an enchanted fountain described at the bottom, but we don't get to see exactly what it looks like. And then there is also this large hippogriff statue, which we actually finally end up putting down. We can make this statue absolutely massive, as you can see here. So we can also interact with the hammer and anvil. We can change it into some pumpkins or into the wow that we see next to it here. In this moment here, it looks like we actually can select the whole cottage itself. So it'll be interesting to see if this is fully interactable, or if this is just an item that we've put in there to allow us to have somewhere that looks nice to live. It would also be interesting to see if we have a different version of this cottage and if there's different aesthetics that we can put in here. So there you have it. That was my full breakdown of the gameplay showcase 2, or 3 parts in one video for you, because I know some of you do like to watch it in one go. Let me know what you thought of my breakdown down below. Let me know if I've missed anything, or also just ask me any questions you want to ask me about my personal preferences about the game. We are so close to it coming out now. It is literally coming out this year and next month, now that we are in 2023. I am so excited. I cannot wait to cover the game and also cover the gameplay as the game releases, and I will be playing it live on the channel. If that sounds like something you're interested in, obviously subscribe and get involved in the comments below. If you want to discuss the game with me outside of these videos, come over to the Discord. We do have a Discord server. We are looking for as many members as possible at the moment, and also come and follow me on Twitter. I reply to everyone over there as well. But that is it for this video, and I really do hope you enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to see you in the next one. But until then, mischief managed.